Victoria Hayes smoothed down her emerald silk dress for the third time in as many minutes, her hands trembling slightly as she stood before the floor-length mirror in the hotel suite. The Seattle skyline glittered behind her through the panoramic. Windows, indifferent to the knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. Tonight was the annual Foster and Associates Gala, the most important networking event of the year for the law firm where she had worked tirelessly for the past 5 years. "You're not wearing that necklace I bought you." Julian's voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. She turned to face her boyfriend of 2 years, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I thought the simple pendant would be more appropriate. For a work event." Julian crossed the room in 3 long strides, his expensive cologne overwhelming her senses. He reached for the delicate gold chain at her throat, his fingers brushing her skin in a way that made her flinch. "I spent $3,000 on that ruby necklace. You'll wear it." "Julian, please. This is my professional reputation on the line tonight. The partners will be there, and I'm hoping to make a case for what? Another promotion you think you deserve?" His laugh was harsh. "You wouldn't even have this job if I hadn't introduced you to Richard Foster at that charity dinner. Remember that, Victoria." She bit the inside of her cheek, swallowing the retort that burned on her tongue. It wasn't true. She had earned her position through countless late nights, thorough research, and winning cases that other associates had deemed impossible. But arguing with Julian when he was in this mood only made things worse. The Grand Meridian Hotel ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the polished conversations of Seattle's legal elite. Victoria moved through the crowd with practiced grace, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries while Julian's hand remained firmly planted on the small of her back. His grip tightened whenever another man spoke to her, his fingers digging into her spine through the thin fabric of her dress. "Victoria, there you are." Patricia Gonzalez, one of the senior partners, approached with a warm smile. "I've been meaning to talk to you about the Morrison case. Brilliant work on that settlement negotiation." Pride swelled in Victoria's chest. "Thank you, Patricia. I actually have some thoughts about expanding our corporate litigation department that I'd love to discuss." "She's being modest," Julian interrupted, pulling Victoria closer against him. "I've been telling her she works too hard. All those late nights at the office aren't healthy for a relationship, you know." Patricia's smile faltered slightly, her keen eyes registering the dynamic before her. "Well, dedication is certainly valued at our firm. Victoria, why don't you stop by my office next week? We should talk about your future here." As Patricia walked away, Julian's grip on Victoria's arm became painful. "What did I tell you about making me look foolish in public?" "I didn't." "Don't contradict me." His voice was low, dangerous. "We're leaving. Now." "Julian, I can't leave. This is important for my career." His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist, yanking her toward the exit that led to the private hallways of the hotel. Victoria stumbled in her heels, her heart racing as she tried to plant her feet without causing a scene. The few people who glanced their way quickly looked away, unwilling to involve themselves in what appeared to be a couple's quarrel. The hallway was deserted, lined with ornate mirrors and plush carpet that muffled sound. Julian slammed his palm against the wall beside her head, trapping her. "You're embarrassing me in front of these people, making yourself available like some desperate—" "Stop!" The word came out stronger than Victoria expected. "Just stop, Julian." His eyes widened in surprise before narrowing dangerously. "What did you say to me?" "I said stop." Victoria's voice shook, but she pressed forward, years of suppressed frustration finally breaking through the dam of fear. "I'm tired of this. Tired of walking on eggshells. Tired of you controlling what I wear, who I talk to, how I spend every minute of my day." "You ungrateful." Julian raised his hand. "Don't you dare." Victoria surprised herself with the steel in her voice. "Touch me, and I'll scream so loud every person in that ballroom will come running." For a moment, they stood frozen in a tableau of tension. Julian's face was flushed with rage, his fist still raised. Victoria's chest heaved with fear and adrenaline, but something fundamental had shifted inside her. She was done being afraid, done being small, done pretending that this was love. "You need me," Julian hissed, lowering his hand but stepping closer, using his height to intimidate. "Without me, you're nothing. Who do you think kept you connected to the right people? Who made sure you got the assignments that mattered?" "I did that myself." Victoria's voice cracked but held firm. "Every case, every win, every connection I made was because I worked harder than anyone else in that firm, not because of you. Never because of you." "We'll see about that," Julian sneered. "Wait until I tell Richard Foster what kind of woman you really are. How you used me to climb the ladder and then threw me away when you thought you didn't need me anymore. Tell him whatever you want." Victoria pushed past him, her shoulder connecting with his chest. "I'm done." She took 2 steps before Julian, grabbed her arm again, spinning her around. "You're not going anywhere until I believe the lady asked you to stop." Both of them turned to see a tall man in a charcoal suit standing at the end of the hallway, his expression calm but his stance alert. Owen Fitzgerald had spent the better part of the evening trying to convince himself that attending the medical legal symposium dinner in the adjoining ballroom was worth the discomfort of a tuxedo and forced small talk. As the chief of trauma surgery at Seattle General Hospital, these interdisciplinary events were supposedly valuable for building relationships between the medical and legal communities. In reality, they were exhausting performances where everyone pretended their work didn't regularly intersect in the messiest, most heartbreaking ways possible. He had stepped out to take a call from the hospital when he heard the raised voices echoing down the corridor. 20 years of emergency medicine had taught him to recognize the particular timbre of fear in someone's voice, and the woman's shaky declaration of "I'm done" sent him moving toward the source before his conscious mind caught up with his instincts. Scene before him was painfully familiar. A man using his size to intimidate, a woman trying to stand her ground while her entire body language screamed trapped. Owen had seen this dance before, had treated the consequences of it in his emergency room more times than he cared to count. The last time had been his sister, and he had been 3,000 miles away, unable to help her. "I believe the lady asked you to stop," Owen said, keeping his voice level and non-threatening while simultaneously making it clear he wasn't going anywhere. The man's head snapped toward him, his face contorted with rage at the interruption. "This is a private conversation. Mind your own business." Hard to be private when you're shouting in a hotel corridor. Owen took a few steps closer, angling himself so the woman could move past if she chose to. "Ma'am, are you all right?" She was striking even with fear etched across her features. Dark hair pulled back in an elegant twist, green dress that probably cost a month's rent. But it was her eyes that caught him. Brown and intelligent, currently measuring him as if trying to determine whether he was another threat or a genuine lifeline. "I'm fine," she said, but her voice wavered on the word. "She's my girlfriend," the man snapped, still gripping her arm. "We're having a discussion." Discussions don't usually involve restraining someone. Owen kept his tone conversational, but his body was coiled and ready. He had been in enough volatile situations in the ER to know how quickly things could escalate. "Why don't you let go of her arms so she can decide if she wants to continue this conversation?" "Who the hell do you think you are?" Dr. Owen Fitzgerald. Trauma surgeon, which means I've seen what happens when discussions like this continue without intervention. He met the man's eyes steadily. "Let her go." For a long moment, nobody moved. Owen could see the calculations running behind the man's eyes, weighing his options, his ego battling with the reality of a witness. Finally, his fingers uncurled from the woman's arm, leaving red marks on her skin that made Owen's jaw tighten. "This isn't over, Victoria," the man said, his voice dripping with venom. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." "No," she replied, her voice stronger now. "The mistake was staying as long as I did." The man's face went purple with rage, and Owen shifted his weight forward, ready to intervene if necessary. But instead of lashing out, the man straightened his jacket with jerky movements and stalked past them both, his shoulder deliberately slamming into Owen's as he passed. Owen let it go, his attention focused on the woman who was now leaning against the wall, her hand pressed to her mouth as if holding back a sob or scream or perhaps both. "Victoria, right?" Owen asked gently, giving her space. "I'm Owen. Are you hurt?" She shook her head, then looked down at her arm where the red marks were already beginning to darken into bruises. "I don't think so. Not physically." "May I?" Owen gestured to her arm, and when she nodded, he examined it with professional detachment. The bruising would be impressive by morning, but nothing was broken or sprained. "You should ice this when you get home. 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off." "You're really a doctor?" She laughed, but it was edged with hysteria. "Of course you are. I just had a complete breakdown in a hotel hallway and a trauma surgeon happened to walk by. That's just perfect. For what it's worth, you didn't break down. You stood up for yourself. That takes incredible courage." Owen pulled out his phone. "Do you have someone you can call? A friend? Family member?" Victoria wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking very small despite her obvious poise. "My best friend is in New York. My parents are in Florida. And I can't go back to our apartment because Julian has a key and I just—" Her voice cracked. "I just told him it was over and I have nowhere to go." Owen thought of his sister, remembered the phone call he had received 12 years ago from a police officer in Boston, remembered the guilt that had eaten at him ever since, the what-ifs that plagued his sleepless nights. He couldn't help his sister anymore, but he could help this woman standing in front of him. "The hotel has a business center with a 24-hour concierge. Let me walk you there. We can get you a room for the night somewhere safe where he can't find you. Tomorrow you can figure out next steps with a clear head." "I don't even know you." Victoria looked at him with a mixture of hope and suspicion. "Why would you help me?" "Because I didn't help someone once when I should have, and I've regretted it every day since." Owen's voice was rougher than he intended. "My sister, she was in a relationship like yours. She called me one night, scared, wanting to leave. I was in the middle of a complicated surgery, told her I'd call her back in a few hours. By the time I did, it was too late." Understanding flooded Victoria's face, followed by compassion that he probably didn't deserve. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just let me help you. No strings attached, just one person making sure another person is safe. That's all." Victoria studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, thank you. I just need to grab my coat from coat check." "I'll come with you," Owen offered, "just in case." They walked back toward the ballroom in silence, Owen maintaining a respectful distance while staying alert for any sign of Julian's return. As they reached the coat check, Victoria turned to him with tears glistening in her eyes. "I kept thinking, I could fix it. Fix him. Fix us. I told myself it wasn't that bad, that he was just stressed or protective or that I was too sensitive. When did I become that person?" "You're not that person," Owen said firmly. "You're the person who said stop. You're the person who walked away. That's who you are." Victoria wiped her eyes carefully, trying not to smudge her makeup. "Will you tell me about your sister sometime, if it's not too painful?" Owen felt the familiar ache in his chest that came with thoughts of Rachel, but also something else, something that felt almost like purpose. "Yeah, I can do that." 6 months had passed since the night at the Grand Meridian Hotel, and Victoria Hayes barely recognized the woman she had been. She sat in her new office, smaller than her previous one at Foster and Associates, but entirely hers, looking out at the Seattle waterfront as rain streaked down the windows. The brass nameplate on her door read Hayes Legal Advocacy in simple, elegant letters. Leaving the firm had been terrifying. Julian had made good on his threats, spreading rumors and attempting to poison her professional relationships. But Patricia Gonzalez had surprised her by becoming a fierce ally, writing letters of recommendation and referring clients to Victoria's new solo practice. It turned out that the senior partner had her own history with controlling men and recognized the signs immediately. A knock on her door pulled her from her thoughts. "Come in." Owen Fitzgerald entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the cafe. Downstairs, his surgical scrubs visible beneath his rain-dampened jacket. Despite his grueling schedule at the hospital, he had made time to stop by every Tuesday for the past 3 months, ever since Victoria had called him with an idea that had been growing in her mind. "Please tell me you have good news about the Henderson case," Owen said, handing her a cup. "That woman deserves better than what the system has been giving her." Victoria smiled, the genuine kind that reached her eyes. "Judge Morrison granted the restraining order extension, 5 years, and the prosecutor is moving forward with the stalking charges." "That's incredible." Owen settled into the chair across from her desk, the same one where countless clients had sat, telling their stories of survival and struggle. "How is she holding up?" "Better. She started that support group you recommended. Says it helps to talk to people who understand." Victoria sipped her coffee, savoring the warmth. "She also asked if you would speak at their next meeting. Share your perspective as someone who treats the aftermath." Owen was quiet for a moment, his blue eyes distant. He did that sometimes, retreated into memories that Victoria knew were painful. They had spent many evenings over the past months, sharing their stories. Owen had told her about Rachel, his brilliant, funny sister who had hidden her suffering behind a bright smile until the night her boyfriend's rage had turned fatal. Victoria had told him about the slow erosion of her self-worth. Under Julian's control, the way abuse didn't always come with fists, but could be just as devastating. "I'll do it," Owen finally said. "Rachel would have wanted me to. She always said that if she ever got out, she would help others. I can do that for her." "You already do," Victoria said softly. "The number of patients you've referred to our pro bono program has been extraordinary. We're helping people because you took the time to tell them there were options." The pro bono initiative had been Victoria's brainchild, a way to offer legal services to domestic violence survivors who couldn't afford representation. She had partnered with several therapists, financial advisors, and housing advocates to create a comprehensive support network. Owen had been instrumental in spreading the word through the hospital's social work department. "Speaking of which," Owen leaned forward, his expression shifting to the focused intensity she had come to recognize when he was working through a problem. "I had an interesting conversation with the hospital board last week. They're interested in creating a formal partnership between Seattle General and your practice, a streamlined referral system, maybe even office space in the hospital for initial consultations." Victoria's heart raced with possibility. "Are you serious? That would be transformative. So many survivors need immediate legal help when they're getting medical treatment, but the system makes them wait weeks for appointments." "I know, I've seen it too many times." Owen pulled out his phone, scrolling through notes. "I drafted a proposal. Obviously, it needs your legal expertise, but the basic framework is there. We could help hundreds of people, Victoria. Maybe thousands." She reached across the desk, taking the phone from him to read the proposal. As she scanned the detailed plan, she felt tears prick her eyes. This man, who had started as a stranger, in a hallway, had become her closest friend and fiercest advocate. He understood her mission because he carried his own. "This is brilliant," she said, looking up at him. "When can we present it to the board?" 2 weeks. I wanted to make sure you were on board first." Owen paused, then added, You know, when I met you that night, I thought I was just preventing a bad situation from getting worse. I had no idea you would turn your pain into something so powerful. I had a good example. Victoria smiled. You could have walked away that night, decided it wasn't your business. But you didn't. I couldn't. Not after Rachel. Owen's voice was thick with emotion. But here's the thing I've learned over these past months. Helping you, working on this initiative, talking to survivors, it's given me something I didn't have before. Purpose beyond just patching people up. Rachel's death doesn't hurt less, but it means something now. We're making sure other sisters, daughters, partners don't become statistics. Victoria stood and moved to the window, watching the rain continue its steady rhythm against the glass. Julian tried to contact me last week, through a mutual acquaintance. Wanted to talk about reconciliation. She felt Owen tense behind her. What did you do? I had my lawyer send a cease and desist letter. Victoria turned to face him, her voice steady and sure. The old Victoria might have wondered if she had overreacted, if maybe she should give him another chance. But that woman doesn't exist anymore. I know my worth now. I know what I deserve. Good. Owen stood, moving to stand beside her at the window. You deserve respect, safety, and someone who celebrates your strength instead of trying to diminish it. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the city pulse with life below them. Victoria thought about the journey that had brought her here, from that terrifying confrontation in a hotel hallway to this moment, standing in her own office, planning ways to help others find their own strength. I have something for you, Owen said suddenly, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small velvet box, and Victoria's eyes widened in alarm. Owen, I'm not... Relax, he laughed, genuine amusement lighting his features. It's not what you think. Just open it. Inside the box was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a small phoenix rising from flames. Rachel had one just like it, Owen explained, his voice soft. She bought it for herself after she left her first abusive relationship, before she met the man who killed her. She used to say it reminded her that she could rise from the ashes. I had this made because you've done exactly that. You've transformed your pain into power, your fear into action. You rose, Victoria, and you're helping others do the same. Victoria's vision blurred with tears as she lifted the bracelet from the box. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep fighting, say you'll keep helping people find their voice the way you found yours. Always, Victoria promised, fastening the bracelet around her wrist. The phoenix caught the light, a small but powerful reminder of everything she had overcome. Owen's pager buzzed, breaking the moment. He glanced at it and sighed. Multi-vehicle accident on I-5. I have to go. Go save lives, Victoria said, walking him to the door. That's what you do best. As he reached the doorway, Owen turned back. We make a good team, you know, the doctor who fixes bodies and the lawyer who protects futures. The best team, Victoria agreed. Same time next week? Wouldn't miss it. We have a proposal to finalize and lives to change. After Owen left, Victoria returned to her desk, touching the phoenix charm on her wrist. Her calendar was full of client meetings, court appearances, and consultations. Each appointment represented someone finding the courage to say stop, to walk away, to reclaim their life. She opened her laptop and began drafting an email to the hospital board, adding her legal perspective to Owen's proposal. As she typed, she thought about that night 6 months ago, how Julian's hand had been raised, how terrified she had been, and how a stranger's intervention had changed the trajectory of her entire life. But Owen hadn't just saved her that night. He had shown her what it meant to transform trauma into purpose, grief into action, pain into advocacy. Together, they were creating something bigger than themselves, a network of support that would catch others before they fell too far. Victoria's Phone buzzed with a text from her newest client. Just left. He doesn't know where I am. I'm scared, but I'm safe. Thank you for believing me. She typed back quickly. You're incredibly brave. Tomorrow we file the protective order. You're not alone in this. As the rain continued outside and the city moved, through its evening rhythms, Victoria felt something she hadn't experienced in years, complete certainty in who she was and what she was meant to do. The woman who had cried out for someone to stop that night had stopped herself. She had walked away, rebuilt and risen, and now she helped others do the same. The phoenix on her wrist caught the light again as she reached for her coffee, a constant reminder that from the ashes of her old life, she had created something beautiful, strong, and unbreakable. She wasn't a victim of her story anymore. She was the author of it,